This is my museum about the technological changes in aviation. The first room is about the beginning of flight. The second room is about innovation of fighting planes. The third room is about the beginning of airplane markings. The fourth room is about evolution of bombing, and we'll finish the tour by the Curator's office. The First World War was one of the deadliest conflicts in history. In the race to gain tactical advantage, each side of the conflict worked on major advances in including aircrafts into war. The dream of flying is as old as mankind itself. However, the concept of the airplane has only been around for 200 years. Before that time, men and women tried to navigate the air by imitating birds. They built wings to strap onto their arm, or machines with flapping wings, called ornithopters. It seemed like a good plan. After all, there are plenty of birds in the air to show that the concept does work. Soon after the hot air balloon was invented in 1783, attempts began to control the balloon's flight. Although sails, paddles, and flapping wings were tried, propellers proved to be the most suitable for propulsion. On July 2, 1900, Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin flew the first fully functional airship over Lake Constance. That was 3 years before the Wright brothers' first flight with the Wright Flyer, which we'll talk about later on in the tour. The first airship flew over Lake Constance for 18 minutes on a distance of 3.5 miles. The LZ-1 for Luftschiffe Zeppelin I was 128 meters long, 11 meters in diameter, and had a lifting capacity of more than 12,428 kilograms. Its two Daimler four-cylinder water-cooled piston engines had a combined horsepower of a Volkswagen Beetle. Before the Wright Flyer, there have been many attempts to making heavier-than-air flying machines, such as the Leonardo da Vinci flying machine. The Wright Flyer was the first aircraft able to sustain speed and control direction. The Wright brothers tested a series of gliders and kites from 1900 to 1902. Their first glider was launched in 1900, and it had only half of the lift they anticipated. Their second glider performed more poorly. Rather than giving up, the Wright brothers created a series of complicated devices to measure lift or drag on not less than 200 wing designs that they had created. Now that they had corrected all the mistakes and calculations, the Wright brothers created a third glider in 1902. The third glider was the first heavier-than-air aircraft able to sustain speed and control direction over a long period of time. Now let's go to the second room about innovation in flying planes. It was not long before aircrafts were shooting at each other. World War I was fought in two arenas, in the trenches and for the first time in history, in the air. When war broke out in 1914, the airplane was just a decade old. It was untested as a weapon, yet over the course of the 4-year conflict, fighters evolved from flimsy converted reconnaissance planes to powerful killing machines of war. By 1909, both France and Germany had a military air branch. The techniques of aerial combat also evolved and formations began to appear. By 1918, there could be 100 planes all working at the same plan. The first use of airplanes in World War I was for reconnaissance flights. The airplanes could fly above the battlefield and determine the enemy's movements and position. One of the first major contributions of the airplanes in war was at the First Battle of La Marne, where Allied reconnaissance planes spotted a gap in the German lines. The Allies attacked this gap and were able to split the German armies and drive them back. One of the planes used during the Battle of the Marne was the BE-2, the second plane in the Bleriot Experimental series. The plane was developed in 1904 for reconnaissance flights. BE-2 was a biplane. It used a 70 horsepower Renault 8-cylinder V-type engine. The plane was made out of wood and fabric. The BE-2 could seat 2 people. Later on, the front cockpit was replaced by a machine gun. This often caused problems, as the balls often hit the propeller. Despite this, by 1916, 5 Zeppelins had been shot down by BE-2s over British grounds. The BE-2 had a crew of 1 pilot and 1 observer, a length of 8 meters, a wingspan of 11.2 meters, a weight of 605 kilograms, and a maximum speed of 115.8 miles per hour, a range of 321 kilometers, and the highest possible altitude of 3 kilometers. The Hanover CO-2 was first flown in late 1917. It was a successful, relatively small 2-seater aircraft that was used to escort bombers. It was equipped with 2 machine guns to shoot enemy planes. Allied fighters would often attack it thinking it was a single-seat scout and got a surprise when the rear gunner fired at them. The Hanover CL-2 had two crew members, a length of 7.8 meters, maximum speed of 165 kilometers per hour, and could stay in the air for 3 hours. Now let's go to the third room about airplane markings. Here you can see a Hanover CL-2 with a German marking. Each country had their own marking. This is the British one, the French one, the German one, the American one, and the Italian one. The markings could be seen from each angle of the plane. Now let's go to the fourth room about evolution of bombing. As early as December 1914, during the First World War, the Royal Navy's Director of the Air Department, Captain Murray Curator, requested a bloody paralyzer of an aircraft from Frederick Handley Page for a long-range bombing. Handley Page responded with the Navy's requirements with a biplane with a wingspan of 30 meters. The first prototype flew on December 7, 1915, and featured a glazed cockpit and armor sufficient to protect from rifle fire around the crew compartment and engines. This aircraft had a great impact on the course of World War I, as it was one of the first bombers and the first aircraft able to carry more than two crew members. This made the Handley Page 0/400 and its successors some of the most deadly aircrafts of World War I. These aircrafts were mostly used by the Allied forces. The plane was introduced in 1916. It had a wingspan of 30.48 meters, a length of 19.16 meters. It had a maximum takeoff weight of 6,060 kilograms, two Rolls-Royce engines, and a maximum speed of 157 kilometers per hour. It had a range of 1,120 kilometers, a highest maximum altitude of 2,600 meters, an endurance of 8 hours, and 4 crew members. Airship raids played an important role in World War I. Whilst the British citizens were used to hearing reports of the army taking part in distant overseas wars, bombing raids on British soil brought about a new experience of war. Women and children being attacked in their own homes is far more terrifying than the normal pattern of war, in which men would go away and fight against the enemy. The bombing also provided fuel for the government propaganda, as a persuasive argument for men to join up, as shown on the poster above. Zeppelins were difficult to attack because they flew higher than the British anti-aircraft guns could reach. The British population feared the Zeppelins. Beatrice Webb, 34 years old when the first airship bombing raid occurred, said, "It moved slowly, the shells bursting far below it. Then there were two bursts that seemed nearly to hit it, and it disappeared. It was a gruesome reflection that while we were being pleasantly excited, men, women, and children were being killed and maimed." Airships were used until October 1918. They stopped being used because the British found a way to shoot them down using incendiary bullets which would react with the hydrogen and make the airship explode. Now let's take a look at the Curator's office. These two passionate workers have been the curators of our museum since 1976. They have since worked really hard to maintain the museum the jewel it is. Thank you for your work. Sincerely, founder of World War I Aircraft Museum, Pierre V.